there's other ways to get to places. The right way. I've always been told, big truck, big road. So,
Is there any significant pushback to put in seconding the motion? Put no truck signs?
It's between the three of us.
Well, I know, I'm asking for your opinion. I'm letting them offer their opinion. I'm not hearing any pushback, so I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Maybe not one tricky.
Yeah, get it off the table right off the bat, right?
Okay. Number 4, discussion on posting of engine braking signs for ordinance 2022-003, ordinance regulating engine braking on town roads of Palmyra. Now, from what I understand, according to that Tyson again, we can't enforce that because it's not written right. It's gotta say unmufflered in the ordinance. Is that right, Chief? It's gotta say
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
and the state, I did talk to Dick a little bit about that. He said, well, the state has all these laws. That's right for the state roads, but not necessarily town. We could post those. But folks, that ordinance, how should I say this, was brought up, done, I'm sure because the past board was getting hammered with people calling when the chicken farm problem happened. And we know what it is to listen to Jake brakes 250 times a day where I live, because they use Calkins Road. There and back. In fact, Dawn had to leave the house at least once because it got so bad. But other than that, I haven't heard anything about it from anybody. We'd have to go in and change that ordinance. And how enforceable is that gonna be, Chief?
Forcing your, well, it'll be like the rest of your signs, right?
Okay.
It's all, that one they might be more conscious of just because that's a lot more common in communities to see signs like that when you enter communities. But it all comes, I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to change behaviors. So it's, I guess I don't know, it's my best answer.
Well, at this point, the way our ordinance is written, a couple words would have to be changed in it so we can't do anything with it. So we'll just table that.
Couldn't we change the ordinance?
Not tonight, because we don't have, it's not an action item.
We should put it on the agenda for next time.
Do we know if the ordinance that was drafted was reviewed by the town attorney?
I would assume so.
I kind of would too, I guess, but.
I think we passed the ordinance the way that we got the form from the Towns Association to write it.
Okay.
So that's why it said, it didn't say unmuffled. So we used a cookie cutter form that we got from the Towns Association. And Frank is quite right, it was all the complaints during the chicken debacle.
Well, that was horrible, but it had to be done, I mean, the whole thing.
And it was horrible, and we were also told by the sheriff that if we had the ordinance, they could enforce it. We didn't have to have the signage, because they did have some squad cars out there. They finally did get a scale from the state. The county doesn't have a scale, the town doesn't have one. They did get a scale out, and that stopped some of the big, those big semis that were hauling stuff. So they were overloaded. Even for the county roads, they were over 24 tons. So that I think they only weighed 2, and that put a stop to that. So we did get a lot of help from the sheriff's department to the extent that they could. It was a mess.
I make a motion, we adjust the language and bring it up and put it on the agenda for next month.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, next, discussion and possible action for the town of Palmyra to move from a 3-person to a 5-person board.
Anybody had comments on it earlier in the public comments? Want to add anything to what they said?
Can you read what I sent you that, what allows us to do that? Or just briefly fill it in with about the village
Well,
powers?
because at some point, the town board gave themselves village powers, you can now go from a 3-man to a 5-man board. If you had been, I think it was 2,500 in your population, you've done that without it, but you now have those powers.
So what's the deadline? Obviously, from the information that you got from the town association was that if it was passed at this point, 2024 would be the spring election for the 2 additional seats.
Right,
And with the fact that we now are doing primaries rather than caucus,
right.
it would be called the traditional primary process if there needs to be one. Otherwise, just a general election, April of *24 for the 2 seats. They would have 2-year terms, just like we
Right.
do.
Right, so
And then
3 and
they'll be
4, it would be seats 3 and 4, and they would be on the even year, and then the chairman in 1 and 2 would be on the odd year.
This has changed from when you originally told me it'd be 1 per year.
If you do it in 2024 to implement in 2025, that's where it gets complicated. But since you're looking at it in 2023 to implement it in 2024, then this is the way that it works.
And when would the earliest election be, if we worked on it now and move forward, when would the election be?
Well, right now, there's 3 elections slated for next year. They're not counting on the fact that there'll probably be a primary in February for the April election. So the first one would be in February. And being that we just moved from a caucus to a primary, I don't know what the dates are for folks to put in their nomination papers for a primary, so I don't know what the deadline would be. So I would think sometime in the fall, I think,
So if the election was in February,
the primary,
and then the general election in April,
April.
when would the additional board members take office?
I don't know, I'll have to ask, I think it would probably follow like what just happened, so probably like April,
April, May.
Third Tuesday, April.
yeah.
Yeah, right after the meeting.
Yeah.
So we're about a year away from adding, so the
Yes.
3-person board is at least good for the next year, basically.
Right, but if you're going to go to the 5-man,
We have to do it.
you gotta get started.
Yeah. Understood.
Okay, some of the reasons for this. Technically, we can't speak to each other technically throughout the month. If we do, it's called a quorum. We're in violation of law. Okay, we don't need that. Now say there's 5 of us. I should be able to call up Josh. Josh, we got a problem with something out on Little Prairie Road. Him and I should be able to jump in the truck and go out there and check it out. Okay, that's not a quorum at that point. Also, there's more access to the board. There'll be 5 of us. There's more community access to the board. Which is, of course, great for more representation in the community. Sure, it would cost a little bit more than, 2 more seats, but we'll try to conserve some money. I wasn't gonna sit up here and say we're gonna, maybe cut down on these legal costs. When I found out we're $10,400 for the year, I don't know how that will help, but it just makes good sense to do it.
Well, it spreads out the workload, so like, we're each not taking 3, 4, 5 different areas that we're managing,
Right.
so there's a lot of positives to it.
And some of you have already spoke about this, but we feel it's in the best interest for the town taxpayers in the end. We really, truly do. I think it makes good sense.
Do we know if we have these additional 2 seats, sorry to cut you off.
No.
The additional 2 seats, obviously population doesn't change, so wards would remain the same, I would assume. Would they still be at-large elections, or would we then, I'm asking a question because I don't know, is if 2 seats are from Ward 1 and 2 seats are from Ward 2.
I didn't ask that
You know,
question.
or if you're gonna end up with,
In all the conversations I've had with them, they've never talked about it being specific to a ward, it would be at large, but I can double check.
The town is made up of 2 wards currently.
Yes.
I guess part of my underlying concern is long-term participation of seats 3 or 4 and 5. And if there would be enough interest to carry those seats for another 150 years, or if the 4 people, 3 people, whatever, would be appointing the 4th or 5th supervisor position at some point, because there's a lack of, I mean, really any conversation, obviously, but.
So it sounds like that's another question to ask, that if you have the 2 new seats up for election, but you only get 1 person to run for one of those seats, how do you fill the?
I would assume it would be, like, if there was a vacancy, let's say I died tomorrow, these 2 guys would pick my replacement to fill the rest of my term. I'm assuming that that would be the same
Good question
procedure,
to ask,
but
though.
I'll try not to.
Watch for buses.
Stay off the camera.
Stay off the tower.
East on Bicycle.
But if you go that route, you would have to have an ordinance written specifically the way that you want it to work. So like, you're saying next year, seats 3 and 4 are coming out, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's an ordinance. And I've got a start on one already, from the samples that I've gotten, so it would be something you'd have to vote on later.
The ordinance,
Yes.
but to get started, we also have to have a motion here to roll,
Yes.
get rolling with it.
Quick intermediate question. Is this an ordinance that would require a public hearing?
More so than just having it at a meeting?
Correct.
I don't know.
That
I don't know, like, from an elector standpoint, if that's one of those,
the electors back in '84 gave at an annual meeting, the
that
power,
comes under the village authority.
right, the village powers. So therefore, that gives us, you have the ordinance I gave to you that now allows us to do it as a board.
Gotcha.
But of course, we want to be very quick too. Does anybody else want to make a comment on this?
I guess my only, another concern is the fact that, I mean, there is expenses, there's a salary, and are we just gonna, if there's a place open, we're just gonna get somebody that wants another $240 a month just to sit on the board? How do we like justify the person's amount of work they're doing than just somebody taking the seat because there happens to be a space open?
Well, Winona can tell you, and I can already tell you, that $240 is nothing. Okay? Now, I know that she worked very hard at what she did. I'm starting out here, so are these 2 gentlemen. But, you know,
I get that,
It's-
but like I said, if there's just an open seat up there,
Well, but we have the primary as well,
right?
where people put their nomination papers in there in the primary, and, you know, hopefully there's discussion on the candidates, and they understand, and, you know, we're more than welcome to talk to the candidates if people are interested, let them know exactly what it's gonna take, and the hours that, you know, are required, and so they can make an informed decision on it. You know, I mean, I could easily say that if 2 or 3 people have already told me if we do it, they'd be interested, but who knows until push comes to shove, right? You know, it could just be talking, but I totally understand what you're saying, but I think that's the case whether we have a 3-person board or a 5-person board.
But once they're elected, it's kind of hard to you know, you guys would self-police and say, hey, Joe Schmo, you're not pulling your weight.
You don't think I would? Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, you might say it, but to actually do something about it. I'm just saying that $500, $600 or whatever could be, I
That's why he
think,
gets the big
utilized,
bucks.
utilized elsewhere.
I'd say something about, I would say something about it, and
Absolutely.
right now, right off the top of my head, I just can't say it couldn't happen. Who would be so low as just to do that, man? Okay,
Have you read things in the
we'll
society?
see, go ahead, sir.
I would like to make the comment that if this is going to operate similar to something in industry or business, this could help improve the quality of the total product, and that cost is irrelevant.
I agree. I make a motion that we move forward with creating a 5-person board in the town of Palmyra.
A second. Oh, I'm sorry, we're gonna add to that?
Whatever it takes to get started. Okay,
The ordinance.
I make a motion to create the ordinance to get it started,
And any other steps that are required.
and any other steps that are required.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Against? It's carried. What's next? Discussion on board members' assignments and other responsibilities, boards, commissions. I'll let Josh start this. He's obviously taking care of the highway, and you came up with a couple names that you'd like to assist, right?
Yeah, well, I guess from the formality of sort of starting over, I don't know, I had kind of reached out and asked the question of how do the town board members get assigned or appointed as like the liaison to the airport commission or the chair of the road committee and those types of things. So to get some of these other conversations funneled into Rob's gonna take care of it, Frank's gonna take care of it, I'm gonna take care of it, what have you, the call it standing committees for the town. Highway committee, who's going to be designated as emergency management, who's going to be Blue Spring Lake liaison, who's going to be the airport commission liaison, and for the highway committee. The highway committee is also 2 citizen appointees, as well as 1 town board member, and within the last year or so, at least within, again, the yellow folder, there wasn't really a highway committee. So I'm more than willing to be that point person if the board so chooses. I've talked with 2 different residents, Ed Miller, who was a former supervisor and also sat kind of in that highway committee chair role. He would be willing to be a member of the committee as well. Mr. Twellmeyer, Greg Twellmeyer, who was with the town of East Troy as the highway superintendent for 35 plus years, is also the second person that I would suggest to the town board to be the 3 people on the highway committee. Greg was here, Ed got sick, so
Everybody's
it's also 8:15, so I don't know. In the grand scheme of it.
Do we need a motion for that, or?
What do you think? I don't think we do.
I think we should, or just.
They are not.
Volunteer.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to see you.
I don't know, this is what we need to, so.
Frank, the chair appoints, the chair just appoints, and you guys can vote on it, you don't need anything special or that.
Okay,
I'm
The
okay.
chair first.
I'm okay with you do that with that, and ready. What's next?
Well, you had other, you had emergency management.
Just, I'm gonna clarify for everybody who is gonna take what role.
I'll do the,
I've got Blue Spring Lake
Okay.
and burn permits, I guess we had talked earlier,
Yeah, there's not really anything there.
which I need to,
Yeah.
well, whatever it is, I need to understand.
I'll do the airport liaison thing. Anything missing?
I think that's it. It's the reports that you have on the agenda.
I guess it's
Good
none.
to go.
Discussion and possible action on permits for work to be done on the town of Palmyra road right of ways. Now, what is that all about? As far as spectrum,
Yeah, there's the two, projects that are coming through town. I think they're both for the broadband or the whatever, that stuff. And, the previous board had an application, it would be $200 for the application, and then they would put $2,000, or give us $2,000 for an escrow account. And if they did not put the land back to your satisfaction, then you would keep a portion or up to the whole $2,000.
and what company is this?
Well, the one was Spectrum.
Yeah.
No one has-
Essentially, anybody who would want to work within a road right away, in the town of Palmyra,
Okay,
would
what,
file an application.
okay, what was that we listened to? I went to the meeting, you were on Zoom.
So the county has the county has a broadband project that they're actually bonding for a company called Bug Tussle. And they are working on extending throughout Lake Mills, Fort Atkinson, Jefferson, part of Palmyra. Their proposed route at this point is to come in on 59, going east, go up Calkins Road, which is a village road now, then back out 106 towards CI is the route that they're planning on taking. They reached out to Laura, asked about right-of-way permitting. Obviously, we have a form, but we don't have a format as far as who reviews those right-of-way permits and or approves them. I guess in my mind, the second project is Spectrum, and they're actually coming out of Walworth County and would come up out Young Road, and then essentially split from there and go back out part of Tamarack and Bluff in a whole different section, but it's not coming really any further than Young Road into the town, into the town. So in my mind, the question is who's going to review the permit and approve it? Is it gonna be the town board? Is it gonna be the highway committee as part of rights of way? Is it gonna be the town chairman, or is it gonna be the chair of the highway committee, like as options of who is gonna do this? Obviously, if it's a right-of-way permit and they're waiting for a monthly town board meeting, it's gonna be slow. Probably not favorable to whoever the applicant is. Similarly, in talking with former Supervisor Miller about driveways, there's a gentleman out in Martin subdivision on Parkview Circle that his house burned down, he's rebuilding, and he wants to move his driveway. Well, his driveway apron is in the road right away. What does he do? I said, well, bear with us for a week and a half until we figure out what's going on at the meeting. Again, is it something that the highway committee has to meet to review, or is it something that the person who's the chair of the highway committee gets the application, reviews it, if there's something, I'll call it extraordinary, to bring it to the town board for more input?
Would you be willing to do that?
I'm guessing the volume of right-of-way permits besides the two we currently have is probably gonna be pretty slim, and I would be willing to do that.
And then the monkey wrench in that too was the one wanted not to give us the $2,000 for us to hold on to. They wanted to get a surety bond instead. But
Which
it's
is
still with the
similar.
fact that if we don't like what they do at the end, we can still get the money from them.
One thing I would add is at least one of the applications was very vague, did not include a lot of details.
Yeah, and then I would assume the person who's
Yeah.
responsible for
One
approving
thing I
it would
would,
have to go back.
one thing I'd like to understand in these permits, and this is, what's the disruption to the roads and the traffic and
Yeah.
the residents, so that would all be part of it.
And to me, that's part of the conversation, is obviously a three-way update email between a third-party vendor for Spectrum and Laura and us to Laura and then to them. I mean, I almost wanted to just
I'm
sway
fine with
to the
the
right.
highway chairman. And that- Your question would be, was it just the chairman with the authority, or does the committee have to review it,
Or if you guys want the board, I mean, the whole town board.
right? No, I agree with you that it's a taking a month to do it, it depends on timing.
You think a motion needs to be made on this? I don't think it needs, to. Just put it in
I think you can assign the
Yours.
tasks.
you are assigned, sir. For all the permits, for right of ways, et cetera.
Yeah.
If there is something that looks,
Yeah.
you're gonna, send it to Laura, and we're gonna have to put this on the next board meeting or whatever, right?
I mean, if any of the projects would, the scope of what Bug Tussle is doing is generally impressive in my mind, and whether it's advantage or not at this point, there's no impact, because 59 and 106 aren't our jurisdiction anyways.
And neither is
Caucus
Caucus.
is not either, so, looking at their layout plan of, let's say, the Fort Atkinson surrounding town areas that they're working through would be more invasive on that. If that was us, I would say, here's an example of something that comes back for more input, whatever it is. But, I mean, the other advantage is to be able to take their project plans, have Laura post them to the website as far as an FYI on the news and notices piece, which for anybody who doesn't get updates, sign up. You get all the postings on the town's website, but that way people would have a point to go through the plans if they wanted to know when and where, who, and all that kind of stuff too.
There's no cost impacts to either of these to the town?
Well, I mean, the 5 minutes to post it to the website, but.
Oh, yeah.
No monetary cost.
Good.
I think the Wisconsin Mechanics Lien Law requires that any municipality, any contractor that's doing work in a municipality or for state work has to be bonded if it's over a certain dollar amount. I can't recite page and verse for you, but I'm thinking $2,500. And if you don't have it all handled properly, so if somebody doesn't get paid and they make an action against the municipality, whoever the attorney is, that municipality has to pay. It's got to be bonded. Now, I don't know if this will fall under that, but it might be worth
Well,
looking into.
The county deal with, what's it called again? Bug Tussle.
Bug Tussle.
That's all in their hands, and they're gonna be watched by the county, and they have to reach a certain criteria before they'll release funds, right? So that one's really gonna be watched. So, yeah, I agree with you, Jim. Okay.
Maybe you're gonna say something?
I was just gonna say Calkins Road, I'm not sure what the village has for a right-of-way there, because that was a big issue when they talked about resurfacing it, they couldn't go any wider than it was. So when they condemned that and then land went back to the surrounding property owners, it could be that the town, the land along there is actually in the town, and the village doesn't have a right-of-way, so it's just something to check into. I'm not real sure, the county would know, you can find on the county map.
You enforce the roadway.
Yeah, that's a very unique set of lines on Calkins, so the road, I can tell you for certain, the road surface is in the village limits.
Right.
I don't know that the piece of gravel a foot off the surface is.
Right.
Because of the way that the lines all interfit out there. It's,
So that would be complicated.
At any rate,
it's very possible that the area where they're operating is actually within the township. I don't know, because the adjoining properties are all in the township on Calkins on both sides.
okay, we're gonna move forward.
Can I rescind my, I'll do the right-of-way permits piece?
So we're moving on.
Yeah. What's this? Okay, discussion and possible action on the invoices due on the airport rezone. Is that something we wanted to reschedule? Josh?
Right, because we had talked about it. Those 3 items were on the agenda that was posted out in the board, but they were not on the agenda that was posted on the website, the first posting. So when I talked to the Wisconsin Towns Association, they said if that one that was on the board was approved by the board, we could continue with it, or the items that were not there, because of how it was posted on the website, we could put it either on the next board meeting or in a special board meeting in the future.
Unless
Between
either
now
of you
and the
think-
next board.
Unless either one of you thinks it's critical, I'd make a motion to push it to the, or table it to the next meeting.
So you're talking 8, 9, and 10.
Well, 9 is taken care
8
I
is
took
what
care of that, I gave him the invoices, remember? That was the thing about the culvert, I called you, Larry gave verbal approval to the guy at the county, remember I called you that a week ago or whatever I was up
I
the
think
county?
they're doing it Wednesday.
Really?
I
So
think.
that one's already dead issue, that isn't,
Okay, so
I
you
just
just
gave
gave
him
his
the,
pen then.
where's the culvert?
It's just, what direction would it be? Southwest of,
Okay, put that in the next,
southwest of the compost site. If you're staring at it, it's on the right-hand side, half of it's filled with gravel and the other side is filled with sand.
So are we tabling that or?
until the next
So-
meeting.
Okay, so here's my rub about that, is that the village has already emailed Laura like 3 times in the last 3 weeks about these invoices for the rezone and for the stormwater improvements. I think it's the stormwater improvements that are past 30 days due. And the rezone for the airport, I'm gonna say airport, the town, whatever. The rezone of all of the town land that the airport sits on was contingent on those invoices being paid by the town. I don't know if they had a 30-day, 15-day net, whatever, but if we need to have a special town board meeting.
To get that taken care of,
to
I
do
understand, but
8
maybe
and
you
10 and anything else.
correct me if I'm wrong, they resent the invoice, there was a mistake on it, they forgot to give us enough credit.
Right, they took like $500 off. I thought that I'd sent all of you a thing that I talked to Dave Hefkin, and he said the airport was gonna cover one, and the Stranded Associates was gonna cover the other one.
Right, so it is supposedly taken care of.
Yeah. But maybe I
Supposedly.
just sent it to you and not to the whole town board.
Right, okay, so supposedly, it is being paid, correct?
Right.
To the best of your knowledge.
Okay.
So Rob started a motion to put 8 and 10 on the next month's meeting.
Well, 10,
I actually only made the motion on 8,
Okay, Bob was
but if that's taken care of.
no, they're paid.
Dies for lack of a
Supposedly.
second.
Okay.
Okay.
I would make a motion to put item number 10 on June's town board agenda.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, people. Please take notice that the town board of Palmyra will move into closed session pursuant to state statute 19.85, paragraph 1, paragraph C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or the performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically discussing the clerk treasurer's contract and possible negotiations for changes. Do I need to read 12 now?
No,
Gotta learn.
we need a motion to go into closed session now.
We need a motion to go into closed session.
I make the motion to go into closed session.
I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote.
Roll call, sorry, yes.
Sauter,